Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to show you how I approach drawing a mallard duck. These aren't rules or absolutes, just my method. Feel free to take what works for you. I'm drawing on paper, but I'll show the shapes and forms digitally so you can see exactly what I'm noticing before putting pencil to paper. Now this isn't something I figure out up front. I do this as I sketch, but I want you to have an idea of what I'm thinking about as I sketch. So when establishing what I want to do with this duck here, okay, so first I'm going to look at the mass of this subject. I immediately see shapes. I'm going to see there's a circle here. And then this cone back here that connects to the rest of his body. And so see that cone shape that he has connects to that circle, which more or less connects to the rest of that. Now there's sort of a half wind shape here. Now you can either think of it as half of a circle, whatever makes it easier for you. There's a straight line here, and then this curve back. If you think of it this way, using his shades of his body, and I'm not going for absolute perfection. I'm not trying to capture every exact line. I just want to get the shapes and the form right. We can worry about that in a little while. So all that gives us, so far, that much of it. And as I said, just kind of keep those shapes in mind. So the circle establishing gives you something to reference. So I always start with a circle wherever I can. There is a circle for his head up here. Then there is a sort of a cone, if you will, just two lines, and then a triangle for his beak. So when I'm thinking these shapes, I'm trying to think in shapes, I'm saying. So this is a little harder to read from this distance, but I know his one foot's in front of the other. Now, you can draw this however you'd like. If you'd like to draw it exactly as is, that's fine. But try to say simple shape first. So here is that shape, and then a little bit of a triangle here. So just a cone and sort of a triangle shape, and another triangle shape here. And the same here. This is basically a triangle shape, but you can fill in the detail later, like that. The idea is just to see the shapes overall. That gives you your established idea of what your character is going to look like, your object you're drawing. It's simple, but it gives you a starting base. And from there, you can start working in ideas. So I'm going to start with, this is what I'm doing. When I start to draw anything, I use basic shapes. I mean really basic, like talking first grade, kindergarten type stuff, okay? Circles, triangles, squares, anything I can use to make it, to break the drawing down. I'll eventually use it to break away from that quite a bit, but I'm showing you a way to approach it two-dimensionally. And of course, it's always best to draw from life if you can. And in a lot of cases, you cannot, because it's just, I don't know, this is a mallard duck, for instance, and I can't just walk outside right now and go draw a mallard duck. A couple of reasons. One, I don't know if there's any around here, and two, it's going to be hard to capture all of that when you're first starting to draw. And that's what this is intended for. I'm just showing you my process and how I draw. There's many ways to do it. It's not just one set way. That being said, I'm showing you my process. Take it or leave it. All right, works for me. So I look at the basic shapes, and it does help to use color, but I tend to not in this case, because I can see, I know what I'm looking at. I know he's a duck, right? He's got a football shaped body. He has almost like a half of a wine glass for his breastbone area. And of course he has like that S-like shape. Now you can go to the trouble of doing like a line to get a feel for, but I like to do spatially. I like to do the body first, or the larger mass if I can, or whatever the biggest part of the references I'm drawing. So for instance, I might do something like this. Now this is really sloppy and messy. Don't have to be too worried about that. Normally what you do is you ghost. You know what? This is meant to be a tutorial, so I will do it that way. I'll show you the way that it should be done. Let me erase this back. By the way, this is not anything super special. This is a Sumo Grip mechanical pencil. It's a 0.9 lead. I just like to use this on camera because it's very bright. It's very soft lead, and it's so it erases really easily. It also smudges like crazy, but that's okay. That's a good pencil, good for sketching and stuff. So when you're ghosting, what you're doing is you're moving your hand like this. You're getting a feel for where your circle is going to go. Then you lay it down. Okay, you're very, very lightly touching. It's okay if it doesn't overlap perfectly. That's not really the point. I mean, if you're trying to do like single circles, you can do that, but that isn't really the point. The point is just to get the shape down. So it's okay to be a little sloppy and loose and messy, and don't overthink it too much. There's the main part of his body, and then from what I can see, his tail. I like to go to the back end first of the last part of the drawing. In this case, the far backside is his tail, and it looks like it. Don't worry about the details yet. That's the important thing. You want to do here, right? That's the back end of the whole shape of his tail. And there's going to be an overlay on screen so you can see it. So I'm using that as a reference guide. Like, it's just a guide. That's what this is. I'm drawing guides. And also, don't chicken scratch. Chicken scratching is when people do this. They're afraid to draw a straight line. Don't do that. Go straight for it. It's okay to draw over the line a few times, 2 or 3 times, like I did there, just to make sure you've got the angle you want and everything. But from here, I'm drawing a cone to connect to this circular part here, this upper part of this circle, this arch. That kind of comes down off of his back right about there. And of course, it hooks quite a bit. But right now, I'm very, very lightly laying this out, okay? Now, normally what I would do is I would start to cut in some of this stuff, but just for the sake of basic shapes, you can see how I visualize it. I'm going to draw it this way. Hopefully I gave myself enough room. And then what I'll do too is I'll kind of ghost like this. I'll get an idea of like, okay, if it comes from over here and it comes to this center point, start from the bottom, go to the center, come from the top, go. And this all happens very quickly. This is not a slow process. He has his neck up here. So what you can do, that little white line in his neck region, right? You can use that as your guide. It's much easier to do if I turn this. You can use that as your guide. Just give yourself a line. You can always erase it. Don't stress it too much. The first part of this is sort of a circle as well. So you can actually redraw another circle if you'd like, a little smaller than this one, or you can just come through and sort of connect those lines like that. And again, I'm not going for exact likeness here. We have this portion of a sort of a bent cone in here, and then he has, I really didn't give myself enough room for this. He has his head up here, a circular portion, and that connects to the back of his head here. Now remember, this is just a guide. Don't overthink this part. You want to do a little triangle action here. This kind of comes out quite a ways. Right? You're just wanting to cut in the basic idea of the duck. So now what I did was, by establishing this circle, I have an idea about how big he should be, where his tail should go. Now I can establish if is this mass enough? Is it big enough? Because he's got a big rounded chest, but then it kind of cuts back quite a bit, and he's pretty poofy. He's got some weight to him. So I'm gonna add a little bit of that here, and see how that rounds back into his body back here, and it goes a little further back. Just kind of using that as my guide, your sketch. And this also has a little bit of a bend to it. So it's easier to come back into it and kind of establish what needs to go where. He's a little long. Well, he's not actually. I want a little far. I think that's about right. Okay. So drawing through is really a really useful thing as well. But before I get there, actually, before we go any further than that, I'm going to establish, I know where his neck should be kind of in here. And then his wing, right, coming off his breastbone over here somewhere, kind of blends into the back of this right here. Kind of does this. This is just the shading that you can see from his feathers and stuff. So you start to round off the figures that you see. And then, of course, he's got you don't have to be 100% accurate about this necessarily. He's got these two, again, this is just the established shape. He has 2 feet. He's got these triangular webbed feet, right? But just give yourself something to go on. His foot is really twisted actually in this picture. So he's got a little triangle here, and then he's got one here for the back of his foot. That actually kind of blends in together right there. Kind of blends in. So there's a small little rectangular toe back here. I'm just going for as simple as shapes as I can. I'm trying to keep this readable so you can see it. There's more detail in there, of course. But this is your basic shape of your duck, right? And then his front, or his left leg rather, I should say, kind of conical here. And then there's an impression that his bone or his leg goes up into his body. Now his wing kind of comes down to where this bend is. You just this is sort of like finding points of reference, so to speak, within the reference. Points of landmarks is what I'm trying to say. So like his little wing comes like more or less in here. It's not perfectly straight or anything, but that's okay. Just again, this is meant to establish how I look at the shape. And then this is the back of his wing coming up over the tail portion right about in here. Again, this is just really basic shapes. I haven't decided to do any details yet. I'm just laying down the foundation of what I see. And that's going to look sort of, at the beginning anyway, sort of amateurish, but just trust the process and keep drawing. And eventually you'll get where you're happy with it. The rendering is the whole idea of what you would think of as a finished drawing. So there's little triangles back here, little pointies, and then here he's got like a little white triangle here on his tail, and then this kind of comes up, curls a bit, and there's a crazy curl back here. It's like a pigtail curl almost. It comes off the back here. It was a very sharp point. Now this is a guide back here, right? So this line, when you go to ink it, if you decide to ink it, that won't be there because you're going to erase it. Or you can also use a photo pencil, which is blue, and if you were to scan it and all that, it doesn't show up, yada yada, just that and yada. Again, still just establishing where I think everything looks right. That's his bill there, obviously, and that starts to round off some of the corners. shoulders here, and then he has under his chin, if you will, under his past his beak, where his chin basically is. There's, for lack of better words, there's that roll there. Now in this picture, his neck's actually quite longer than this. So in order to adjust that, see, this is just a guide. I can actually bring his neck down from that angle, and it's also not this wide. This is the idea, like, this is where it can be really useful. Now, I don't normally go through this much trouble to draw. I go a lot faster. Trying to break this down, I actually think makes me slower. But I just want to help. I'm hoping this helps somebody. Okay, so there's basically the shape of his neck, and then, see, it's just a cone. And he has that, that mallard white line that they have. And then he just has this is just me randomizing it, but they have this dark shade here, and then he has this feathering. So, like, it's brown here, it's green here, of course his beak is yellow. So brown, very, very dark brown. So like a white or a gray, some white, some brown, some gray up in here. And that's just, this part of it just takes some getting used to, some practice. Again, you can still find, like, there's almost a triangular shape in here, and then some of the shading that comes off the back of his feathers there. I mean, I am not even wording right. The back, on his back, basically above his wing, there is some random brown in here. It's kind of strewn about, and then there's a little in here. There's some impressions, and then this kind of it's shaded brown. The whole thing back here is just a mess of a brown gradient shading kind of thing. So just for now, I'm going to bring this up to here, and I'm going to do one of these so you get an idea of what's going on. Now, I'm still just establishing the basic idea of what he looks like. But from here, this is me, you can start to refine a little bit and start throwing in ideas of, like, where his head should be. So the top of his head, basically right around this side of it, it kind of rolls onto that side of his head, and this kind of comes under a little. And then he's got his eyeball. Now this is obviously just, you can always just do a circle, right? And then a very small football-like shape coming around for his eye. And then they have sort of the impression that there's a indentation in there. And he does have some shiny whiteness coming off of his eyes. You can use a little rectangle for that, and then just fill in the shade for his eye. And what really sells, in my opinion, like a rendered drawing versus, say, like just a sketch, is detail. And you can get a lot of detail from just with a pencil. You can do it with hatching, you can do it with blending, and I'll do that probably the most effective way to do it. And I will show you how I do it. Now, the thing is, this is a gray tone, so this is as dark as it's going to get. So if you want it to be really, really dark, you're either going to have to switch pencils, or you need to use hatching to your advantage. And hatching will allow you to have, let's say, with this gray fur texture here, that's got, not fur, his feathers. Here, more or less, is like a white spot there. The lightest spots, just leave it. Leave it as light as you can. The darkest ones, you want to add a little bit of feathering in it. If you just want to give the impression that it's gray, I mean, you can really just do one of those. I mean, obviously, that's not 100% accurate, but you can do this and then blend it out. I'm going very, very lightly. I'm not pushing down hard at all. Most of the time, I draw with my arm, or my shoulder rather. I try not to draw with my elbow or my wrist. For one thing, it'll wear you out, and secondly, it's much more accurate, believe it or not. It might seem counterintuitive, but it's actually the way you should do it. So his footy foot, it's actually more triangular, like it kind of comes out this way. This has a little bit more roundness to it. And I'm not going for absolute realism. I wanted to keep this simple because realism is especially hyperrealism, is a lot of refining. It takes a long time to do. So that's not, if you're interested in doing that, by all means go for it. But that's not what I'm doing here. I'm trying to just show you an easy way to start establishing your drawings so that you can draw. Get some things put down on paper, I mean, go for it, man. Make some work happen. Anywhere you see a darker shade, just shade that a little bit, and it'll give you illusion of depth, right? So, right around the back side here. And you can also just finger smudge to get some shading tones. He's got this coming through here. See, that starts to look more realistic-ish that way, in my opinion. This is his little foot claw thing. And this foot, like I said, is also turned really interestingly. So I'm only drawing what I see. So you should be able to see the same thing that I'm seeing. And if it seems kind of counterintuitive, I understand it can be. And if you smudge like that and you get too much outside of your drawing and it's kind of breaking your illusion, just erase it back. Smudging erases really well. Although I will say it's hard to get it to completely come off the page. If you go too heavy with it, there's an indentation maybe that he has his footy foot's his leg going in there. So, and his breast here isn't very big. It kind of goes all the way out according to this picture I'm looking at. It goes way far out. Okay, so I'm trying to stay true to that. And also this, so you can always just refine your drawing. So like this comes out a little bit further out than that. See, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now for this, there is a little bit of light shading in here, but most of this is dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of scribble it in very lightly. Again, I'm not pressing hard at all. I cannot stress that enough. I'm barely touching the paper. All right, for now, I'm going to smudge this out. Okay, real simple. And I'm going to erase some of this back so that some of that highlight comes back in, but not completely. Just stretch what I have here, basically. And the same here, you can just smudge this out. It'll give you a light gray tone. when I was first learning to draw, like, I don't want to say properly, but like almost professionally, I guess. When I started getting serious with drawing, I should say, especially it was when high school. And it doesn't matter when you start drawing, by the way. There's no limit. Just you can start drawing. I don't care how old you are. Start drawing if you want to. It doesn't matter. I just started drawing a long time ago. I would spend a lot of time smudging my drawings because I thought it was cool. At first, I wasn't like, like most people. I'm like, I don't know how to smudge my drawing. I got to the point where I'm like, no, it looks cool. And that's why there's a smudge tool in Adobe Photoshop and pretty much every drawing program. It's a little finger on it because it's effective. So his feathering here, you want to give the impression that this isn't just a straight line. It's not a band. It's just how his feathering looks. You can do this. And then he's a really beautiful green, and I don't have green, right? I'm just using my pencil. So I'm going to try to go with the shading that I see, and this is what I am seeing. This is just practice. This part of this, you just have to keep trying. If you get your main shape down, the rest of the stuff will fall into place. Let me give him his little bump on his snout, right? He's got a little black smudgy smudge. Again, I'm just drawing. I drew his eyeball a little big. That's okay though. He's not meant to be 100% realistic. Again, just trying to show you how I approach things, like how I see it. And I'm trying to show you this shading that I see. Now, the cool thing is I don't actually have to shade him in, right? Because all of this that I'm putting on here, I can actually use this to my advantage to just smudge it out. So what I'll do is this. So it's still bright, just not as bright, and kind of gives the effect that I'm going for. Again, if I need to, I could just erase it back. Not a big deal. But wherever I want it to be darker, I can hatch it out and smudge it. So you'll still get the hatch lines, but you won't it won't be quite as intense in terms of sharpness. Helps to actually push the pencil out. Now, I always say the reason, like, I'm not copping out. I can actually do hyperrealism if I want. I don't love doing that anymore. I did it for a little while, and it was not as satisfying to me as drawing something with a little bit more illustration to it. Look at him smugging at you. Yeah, see, this looks a little bit more illustrated to me. That's just how I like to do it, though. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, if you want to do hyperrealism, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I just got kind of bored of it. Very time consuming, and I wanted to do more than a few drawings every couple of weeks, because I would get so burnt out between that and having to work. I'm like, I just don't have time for this. I want to draw things and create. That's just me, though. You do what you want. If your goal is to learn to do hyperrealism, you still have to learn how to break stuff down first. Otherwise, you won't know, your proportions won't be right, and then it'll look wonky, and you won't know why. I actually did it to myself, even though I knew not to do that. I was so curious about getting to hyperrealism, like seeing if I could do it, that my first one I did looked like complete doo-doo, because I did this really beautiful rendering of a cat, right? The one half of them, the underdrawing did not look good. So I was in such a rush to get to that hyperrealism state. I'm like, I want to see if I can do it. Well, I did. It didn't look very good. But that's okay. I learned not to do that. His feet are a little tiny small, but that's okay though. So this is just meant to be a sort of a how to get established, If you can learn to do that, so quickly that turned into the duck. Yeah, duck. Drawing's supposed to be fun, man. It's not. First of all, it's not competitive. It's for me. I'm not competitive with art. With myself, I am sure. With other people, though, I don't like being competitive with art. So I'm letting my pencil just kind of stay on the page. Personally, that's what I like to do. That's how I approach doing this. One of the things I do, I kind of let my pencil, let it just glide and do what it's going to do. It's sort of like painting in that sense. I know a lot of times people will say, well, make sure you intentional markings and whatever. I don't know. It is what it is. I've just been drawing for so long that I know how I want it to come out. It's never perfect, but it does what I wanted it to do. Cool thing about doing this in pencil too is that you have to kind of learn value of specifically, does this look darker than that? That kind of thing. And it'll start creating depth. This sort of forces you into, see how much of a mess I make? It forces you into seeing things in sort of like in their depth, regardless of their color. And so you're trying to mimic that with what you see, sort of like black and whiting it, basically. When you throw hue in, the color theory really starts to mess with things. So it takes time to get there. So if this wasn't apparent, this is a mallard duck. I don't know if I told you that. That's what he is. Again, I just wanted to try to give you a basic idea of how to approach drawing stuff. This isn't a specific, like, how to draw exactly this animal necessarily. It's just how to draw anything. Like, if you start with the basic idea of starting with basic shapes, I'm saying, and then work your way around, just you kind of want to sculpt. You just want to go work the head, work the body, get your main shapes down. Make sure your proportions are basically right, if not exactly right. I mean, but they don't always have to be perfect, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve, right? So if you work a drawing long enough, you can make it super hyper realistic. And my point has been more now just to get something done, something drawn, something on the paper, keep myself moving forward. I've also gotten to the point where I ink a a lot. So it's been a while since I just did this. Let's see, that gives him a much more, I don't know, realistic flow to him, I feel like. That's just me though, I suppose. Throw in different variations of lines, and which gives you texture. You start to believe what you're seeing is coming from life. And the real goal for me is just to share with you what I've learned, and hopefully it's useful. I mean, I really do honestly don't think I'm the greatest or anything like that. I'm just sharing with you because when I was younger, I wish there were more. Man, there's so many things out here now where you can learn from so many amazing artists and stuff. And we didn't have that growing up. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like, oh, back in my day, but I mean, really, we really didn't have that. You had to go to the library and stuff to try to find books on things, or go to like the bookstore and buy something to find anything relative to what you're interested in. You were limited by the school you were going to, and you don't really have that problem nowadays if you know where to look. I mean, now you can actually take MIT courses online for free. Like, that's wild. If you just want the education, it's right there. So I'm trying to just give back the best I can. You know, if you like the way that I draw stuff, this is how I do it. Honestly, I didn't always draw construction. I suppose in some way I did, but you know, I would start to go with like the head or something and work my way down. And I found this is much faster, much more efficient to get your proportions right. And it's easier to sort of sculpt it as you go, rather than trying to get it right the first time. I mean, there is an eraser for one, and two, there's a lot to be gleaned from construction drawing. And I think people try to like shortcut stuff. I mean, there are people who know what they're doing. Okay, there are plenty of artists out there that can do that. I'm not knocking that at all. I'm saying for me personally, it was much easier for me to do construction drawing. Much faster, much more consistent results. So it's a little big. Mostly just trying to show you, like I said, the way that I do things. I mean, I'm not perfect by any means, any stretch of the imagination, but I keep trying. And the more detail you put in here, the more realistic it's going to look, obviously. But I don't know how obvious that is, but that's the case usually. Now here I'm using my wrist, more or less, my fingers, because I'm trying to stay within a confine. I'm going very, very easy though. Now here I'm using my arm more, so I'm covering more area. You can actually use the pencil to blend as well. It'll push the graphite around. And like I said, this is very forgiving medium. This pencil, it's okay. Like, it'll erase pretty well most of the time. And then there's a ton of black back here, same as this, and that's as dark as I can get it. So knowing that that's your darkest, it also, when it's a darker spot, knowing it's your darkest, I'm trying to say, means you can be a little bit more loose with those, because you know you're going to shade it out. Now if you're going to ink it, it's fine to be really, really loose too, because the chances are you're just going to wash it out anyway. By inking it, you're going to erase it, so it's not too big of a deal either way. Here I'm just kind of scribbling because I know I'm going to cover this. So I'm also not pressing hard, because if I do, this pencil will break. So that's a benefit of using something like this as well. So that's Mr. Mallard Duck there. You know, his stripe here is a little less perfect than that. You know, it's like a little wider here in parts and stuff, and that's okay. Like I said, I'm not going for an absolute perfect replication. The point is to get your shapes sort of, what am I trying to say? It's to get your shapes matched up to proportion. You know, learn how big of a circle this needs to be, how big of a circle that needs to be, or half circle, or however you want to think of it, or this football, or the cone shape, or his feet with his triangles. He's more or less shaded, right? You know, this is a really bright picture, and you're going to see it on screen, and hopefully Premiere Pro will keep it very bright when you see it, because man, is it ever. So there's a little bit of under shading here. The thing about drawing too, and again, my opinion, it's done when you say it's done. If you think it's done, just call it. Don't overthink it. It's okay to walk away from something and just move on to something else. Don't beat yourself up too much about it. If there's something you don't like about it, that's fine. Then just learn from that, figure out what it is you don't like, readjust, and do another one, or go to something else. There's a lot to be said about iterative drawing. Iterative drawing is when you draw the same thing, iterations, multiple times. So you draw a duck, you draw them again, you draw them again. I did this for wolves, I did this for cats, and for people. I drew so many things, especially in 2020, but a lot of time drawing things over and over again until I felt like I couldn't draw it anymore. And I learned a lot from it though. I spent a lot of time doing that, which is good. Like if you want to practice, I don't know, for some reason, if you want to learn to really draw ducks, draw a duck and draw them again. But see, by the way, I failed to mention this. This is the first time I've ever drawn a mallard duck. I've never in my life had any reason specifically to draw this guy, and just hanging here with y'all, you know, it's the first time I've done it. And so I'm saying you can draw literally anything with enough practice, you know, just be patient with yourself. And is this the greatest drawing I've ever done? No. It gets the point across though, you know? I mean, like you could tell it's a duck. That's all that matters, as long as you understand what you're looking at. If you want to really refine drawing, one of the things that you can do is soften the edges. Like where I went in and I kind of cartooned him up and did him really harsh against the background. You can actually refine that by not giving him a sharp line and then erasing all that stuff back. Like this guideline here. So all these lines that are thickening up on the side, just don't do it. You know, soften it up. Maybe not the greatest thing I've ever drawn, but whatever. He's done. Hopefully you learned something from this. I'm going to keep going with these and seeing if I can get anybody inspired to do something. I don't know. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully it turned out okay. And hopefully you learned a little something. Give him a little ground he's standing on. Give him some depth. Let me know. Give me like, comment, subscribe, or dislike if you don't like it. And let me know what's up. And I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for... Hang on. No, I got to... It's going to drive me crazy. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.